Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zaquetta. For those of you who are new here, I am the founder and creator of the Gym Experience. My goodness. Today I just want to talk a little bit about my journey, my walk with God. So let's dig on in, okay? So I got saved when I was 12, and also at the age of 12, I learned how to speak in tongues. Um, you know, 12 to 16, living life, right? Didn't know too much about it, but I knew I wanted to give my life to Christ when I was 12. At 16, I wanted to like rededicate my life back to God and solely live for Him. Okay. So at 16, that's when I also decided to, not decided. So 16, I decided to give my life back to Christ and live for Him and just turn away from the things that I was doing. So that's what I did. 16, I also found out that I have the gift of visions and dreams. So God talks to me in dreams. And I had a lot of visions though, growing up as well. I remember several visions, but this one particular vision, I remember when I was 16, going to prom, my junior prom. And that day it was windy, and I remember feeling something off in my spirit. Like I couldn't pinpoint what it was. I didn't know what it was. I just knew like, okay, something isn't right. Like something is just not right. So anyways, go to prom, we have a good time. Cool. We leave prom. We go to my friend's house. You know, we go to our friend's house and we're changing because we're about to go to an after party, right? We about to have a good time. Or so we thought, okay? Well, at least I didn't. I know I ended up going home after everything. So anyways, but so yeah, we leave prom, go to my friend's house, change our clothes. We're on our way to this after party. Now, mind you, it's the vehicle that I'm in and another vehicle that we're following. So it's two vehicles, probably 10 of us, I think. I don't know. I don't remember. But I remember we stopped at a gas station. Now, and if anybody is, let me just paint the scene real quick. If anyone, sorry, if anyone is familiar with the back roads on the south side of Atlanta, preferably Stockbridge, then you know back then, them dark roads was pitch black, okay? The only light that you seen out there was the traffic light, okay? Pitch black. Anyways, so we're at a gas station, we're waiting, we're getting things together, and everybody's just chilling. And I get a vision of an accident. And I'm like, hold up a minute, God. Like, what is happening? So I get this vision and I'm asking God, like, should I get out the car? Like, that's the first thing I ask God. Should I get out the car and get into the other vehicle? Like, what's happening? What should I do? And I hear God say no. And I'm like, okay, should I move to the middle seat? Because I'm in the third row. It was me and another person. And I'm like, maybe I should just move to the third row. And he's like, no. And I'm like, what? I'm trying to figure like, God, why? And so I stayed there and I said, okay, cool. Let's just stay put. Let's just stay put, right? Anyways, I stay where I'm at. And so there's me, another person in the middle. Only it was just one person in the middle. It was just her by herself. And then I believe two people in the front seat. So it's 5 of us in the car or SUV. So we take off. 3 cars is on the road that we're driving on, and the car that we're following was in a turning lane. And there's another vehicle. So there's the vehicle that we're following, the vehicle, and then there's us. The friend, the person that was driving, she was trying to catch up to the vehicle that we're following. So when the light turned green, because we're sitting at a red light right now, right? When the light turned green, she ended up trying to speed in front of the vehicle, which, because I said it was windy that day, the wind ended up just pushing us into the ditch. Like we ended up just going into the ditch. And so that's how we got into a car accident. Now, let me just say this. I didn't say anything to them about this vision. I didn't even think to to say anything to them about it, you know, like, should I say something? I didn't even think that. Um, but after everything, I remember telling one of my friends, and I was like, you know, girl, I had a vision about this. Like, I had a vision that this was gonna happen. And she was like, I'm so glad you didn't tell me, because I would have been freaked out. And I was kind of like, yeah, you know, like, yeah, who you telling, you know? Um, like, imagine being 16 and you're having visions, and none of your friends could understand it or think, you know, none of your friends would know. You know, this was my first time ever having something like that. So yeah, that happened. Um, so then, you know, graduate college at 17, college, or graduate high school at 17, go to college um, at 18. And, you know, now I'm like, okay, yes, Lord, excuse me. So now I'm living life, you know, I have branched off and I'm finding my way at this point, okay? So let me just say this. I went to ORU. Prior to going to ORU, I had a prophecy. A woman prophesied to me about my life. And it was out the blue. And of course it was out the blue. But we was praying, and she prayed over me and, you know, left it at that. She said what God said and left it at that. It wasn't until, because I'm 17, right? It wasn't until 19 that I get that same prophecy again, but from a different, you know, from a different woman, of course. And this woman, she sat next to me on a plane coming back from LA. So I'm prophesied to about the same thing, literally word for word. I mean, nothing was off beat at all from what the previous woman has said in regards to my life. And I said, okay, God, I hear you. You know, I heard you. I hear you, right? Anywho, still living, still doing my thing, living and doing whatever, right? So 21 comes. 21 is a life changing age for me, a pivotal moment in my life. 21 comes and I'm drinking. I'm legal to drink. So, oh, listen, I'm partying, okay? I turned into a party animal. So, like, oh my goodness, I started partying, going out, having a good time. I linked back up with some of my old high school friends. I mean, we really turned it up in these Atlanta streets, okay? And yeah, I was living, I was at this point of the world, okay? I was in it and of it, doing everything, well, not everything, but was of it, okay? That's what I was doing. So anywho, 23 come, I meet my child's father at 23. Didn't know he didn't know he'd be my child's father, but I met him at 23. And this is when, like, life start lifing for me, okay? So at 23, I meet him. I end up getting pregnant at 26. We have a pretty toxic relationship. And if I'm being honest, had I not gotten pregnant, I don't know if I would have ever left him, because I stayed with him when he was disrespectful. I stayed with him when he was doing other stuff. I stayed with him even then, like I stayed with him. So had I not had my son, I don't think I would have left. And I'm so grateful to God. I thank God for my child. Okay, let me just say that. I really do. So I got pregnant at 26. 2015, gave birth to my first son. We ended up breaking up in 2016 because of, you know, again, it was a toxic relationship. Just, you know, it's something that just, it wasn't good for me. I find myself I ended up losing my job. So I ended up going to stay with a friend at the time. And during that time, that's really when him and I ended up ending things. And that's really when God started to, like, you know, deal with me about some stuff. So 2016, living with a friend, I end things with him. I say, listen, um, this isn't gonna work anymore. What led me to that is God actually showed me, he gave me a dream about me having another child by this man. And in the dream, I remember saying, see, God, like, see, he did change. That's what I'm telling myself in the dream. And I'm like, oh no, we're not having, we ain't doing that no more. I don't want to do it. Nope, nope, nope. I never shared the dream with him because, I mean, for what? Like, right? But that was God letting me know, like, you keep on having sex with this man, you're going to have another child by this man. Okay? So chill. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop at this point because I don't want another kid by this man. Like, no, not at all. Mm-mm. Now, um, let me back up just a little bit. So that was 2016. I want to say like a few months prior to me moving in with my friend, because I moved in with my friend in July of 2016. And I want to say earlier that year, he ended up putting his hands on me. Like he choked me out. And I blacked out to the point where I felt my entire body shaking and seeing the white light. And I heard him say, oh, sugar honey iced tea. I heard him say that. So anyways, that situation happened, okay? And I still was there, okay? So anywho, that situation happened. He definitely tried to kill me. That's what he definitely tried to kill me. And I just want to pause on this little subject real quick on this here. God kept his hand on me during that time. Like I was still fornicating, okay? I was still I just was not, I wasn't living the life God had for me, okay? So after having my son almost a little after one, I want to say, that happened, that situation happens where he choked me out and whatnot. I ended up losing my job afterwards, and then I had to move in with a friend, okay? July of 2016 happens. So I'm there for a few months. By like maybe October. Yeah, October, because that's when I ended up getting moving out to Oklahoma. So October of 2016. I ended up moving to Oklahoma. And, I'm kind of still dealing with the breakup. Just a little bit. Still dealing with the breakup. And we arguing about everything. Like, just going back and forth. Well, you this and blah, blah, blah. Just all this and that. Toxic. Okay? Toxic. So I ended up moving out to Oklahoma and I found so much peace there. Like, I went to Old Roberts. So I'm familiar with Tulsa. And I had so much peace there. Like, it was really, really an amazing experience that God had me in at that moment in my life, right? Eventually, I did come back to Georgia, 2017, at the top of, like, I want to say after February, I came back because he, at the time, was, I want to see my child. Like, I want to see my child. He didn't say for me to come back, but I did come back to make it easier so that he could see his child, right? Like, let's co-parent. We're going to co-parent. Cool, let's do it, right? That didn't really work out too well. So, yeah. So I'm back in Atlanta, 2017, and I'm not, I'm not praying as much as I was when I was in Oklahoma. Like I was on I was on my game, okay? Making sure I'm putting content out in regards to the gym experience, all that good stuff. The Speak Life Challenge, just I'm on it, okay? Me and God, we are like connected. I'm plugged in, okay? Move back, get disconnected, start lifing again, okay? So now, towards the end of 2017, my son's pediatrician suggested that I get him checked to see if he's autistic. And I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna wait. because a lot of mothers, a lot of parents were telling me like, oh, my son, boys it just takes time for them to develop and to start speaking. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I didn't think anything of it. I just took their advice because, hey, they already have kids, they have boys. So I'm going to just go from there. But when I realized, like, hold on a minute, it's been a little bit like, so now he's coming up on 3. Like, he really isn't talking. That's when I finally decided to make that appointment, and he got evaluated at the top of 2018. And that's when that's when he was diagnosed with autism. And I was like, it hit me to my core. I was so torn up in that room. I couldn't, like, I cried. When I tell you I cried, I was trying to hold it together so bad, but I couldn't. She told me, and tears just, I'm keeping my composure, but like tears is just running down my face. And I'm just kind of like, wow, okay. Wow. So after learning of the diagnosis, it was very, very rough for me. That was a rough time for me because I'm like, God, what am I about to do? How am I about to do this? So I immediately, I took all the resources that they gave me, and I immediately just started to, do all that I can do for my son and make sure that he is high functioning. I want to make sure he's going to be able to start talking. Like, I want to, a lot of things. I just hit the ground running and doing what I could do about making sure my son is going to be all that he can possibly be here in the world. Okay. And then some. So, that summer, so I turned 29 in 2018. 2018, I turned 29. Well, about to turn 30. So I'm 29, about to turn 30 in 2018. And I want to say May. Yeah, May of 2018, I really, really, like, depression hit me hard, like really hard. I ended up moving to Dallas, Georgia, and because I was living with my mom and whatnot. And I moved to Dallas, Georgia, and I felt as though that it seemed like all hell broke loose, like I'm really, really fighting for my life at this point, like to live and I was depressed and I wasn't in the best headspace. Like, I really wanted to just end my life. Like, it was just so hard for me mentally to just still dealing with his diagnosis, and like, oh my goodness, it was hard. Okay. So I was really depressed, and the enemy I was like not in the best headspace. I gotta say it again. I wasn't in the best headspace. It was such a deep, dark space for me. So I was dealing with that. I remember always talking to my best friend and just letting her know, like, I'm just not right. I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling like myself, and I'm telling her how I'm feeling. And she's such an amazing woman of God, always prayed for me, always spoke life over me, always was giving me the word and continue to pour into me, like, listen, no, but this is what the word says. This is what God says about you. No, like, so as she continued to pour into me, I'm still fighting, but like not giving it my all for real. Like, God, when is this gonna be over? That type of thing, right? Anyways, about 2 weeks before my 30th birthday, that's when it got real, real dark quick. I ended up, like, so where we lived, there was a train that came that, like, the horn went off literally every 2 hours, it seemed like. After 7 o'clock, because it's quiet during the day, which is weird, but at night from 7 like to 9, you're gonna hear that horn go off every couple hours. And so one morning, because it was early in the morning, it goes off, and I'm just like in my bed, like, what the heck? I'm upset, like, I'm mad, I'm just like so discouraged with life right now. Just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. I'm thinking I need to move. I need to move out of state. Thinking like, I just need to get out of town or something like that, right? But that at that time, Oh, excuse me. At that time, that wouldn't have solved my issue, because I'm dealing with a spiritual thing, right? So, um, 2 weeks before my 30th birthday, this particular night, the train goes off, is late, and I'm upset because the sound, the horn's going off, and I'm like, oh, great. So I'm upset that the horn is going off, and um, tears just start flowing down my face. Like I told myself that I'm gonna just do it. I'm gonna just do it. I'm gonna end my life, um, take these pills, and that's what it is. I'm gonna OD on some pills. Like, that's what I had made up in my mind to do. Um, so anyways, I didn't take any pills or anything like that, but I did start to write out a text message to my friend. And one second. That particular night, I ended up writing a text message to my friend, my best friend, letting her know how I'm feeling, what I'm about to do, right? And I'm up pretty much till like 6 in the morning at this point, because I'm up crying, just like, oh my goodness, like, God, I really am so tired of this. Like, I need help. Okay. And let me just say this. I'm, you probably might be thinking, why haven't you gone to go see somebody? Now, one time while I was feeling like this, did I ever go and see someone? And one might have thought that I was still postpartum, to be quite frank, because he just turned 3. So one might have thought that I was still dealing with postpartum depression. But so yeah, I get ready to write this text. It comes about 6 in the morning at this point, and I think my friend ended up calling me. And I just started crying on the phone with her, like, girl, I'm really having a tough time right now. We talk, she prays over me, and my spirits feel a little lifted, like a little more, I feel a little bit better now. I go back to the text message. Now, everyone who has an iPhone knows that when you go inside of a message and you start texting, you start writing it out, it's still there. Like, it's a saved draft, basically. It's still, it's going to be there still. This particular message was not there. It went away. It was gone. And I said, that's God. That's how I knew, like, nope, I shall live and not die. Period, point blank. So, after that day, the next couple of weeks was, it got a little bit better. I started to just come back to Zaquetta. I ended up getting a client, like someone booked me and wanted me to do their makeup, and I said, okay, great. She lived a little ways away from me, but I did it, and I was super happy that I did it, because it allowed me to, get up out my funk, right? So anyways, my 30th birthday comes, and there's been a shift in the atmosphere. There's been a shift where now all of a sudden I just no longer want to feel sad anymore. I no longer want to end my life anymore, Now, let me just pause here too. I had dealt with suicidal thoughts and depression since I was 14. A lot of, like, I went through something traumatic in my life at a young age, and I grew up angry, and so that spirit of depression and the spirit of suicidal thoughts was over me for many years. It would come and go, that type of thing. Like, it would be situational. Like, something would happen, and I'm, oh my goodness, like, oh, I can't believe this. What is life? That type of thing, right? So that particular time, 2018, when that happened, it seemed like it was the worst, like the worst of the times that I've ever had gotten it before, And so I said, okay, God, like, I don't ever want to feel like this ever again. So right when my birthday came, the 30th birthday comes, something switched. There was a switch, and I just stood tall, and I don't want to live like this. I don't want to think like this. So from that point on, um, I moved a little bit differently. Okay. Um, so I moved out of Dallas, and I actually moved back in with my mom. Um, moved back in with my mom, still lifing, just living life, right? I thank God for how he brought me out of that mental state, because anybody who's ever felt depressed or felt like wanting to end their life, like that's a very hard headspace to be in. Very, very hard. And I'm so grateful for the people that was in my life, particularly to my best friend, because she really, really, that is a woman of God. Okay. Like, I'm very, very blessed to have such an amazing accountability partner, best friend. Like, I'm blessed to have somebody like that in my life, right? So God delivered me from having those thoughts and from feeling depressed and what have you, right? So anyways, I'm lifing. It's 2018. I'm lifing because I ended up leaving where I was in Dallas, because I wasn't even there long. I ended up leaving about a month after. Like, so 2 months. I give it about 2 months. I want to say about 2 months, because after I turned 30, I was there a little bit longer. And then when I started to gain more business with my business, with me doing makeup, I'm living too far out. Like, a lot of the clients that I have is back where I used to live, and then some a little bit further south. So I said, okay, I'm not going to be driving all across town like this. So let me move back. Let me move back in with my mom for a little bit. It would be beneficial for me, right? So I moved back in with my mom, and God gives me a dream about a business, right? About what I should do, right? So I ended up going after it. That year, by the end of that year, I ended up taking my real estate license courses. So I took the class. I did it for the state of California. 2019, I ended up taking my exam in August of 2019, passed it first try. Gotta throw that out there, thank God. So anyways, I'm very grateful that I passed the first go round. Okay, so I'm excited. I'm off this really, really like high, like emotions of, oh, thank you, God. Like, okay, cool, because I'm starting to feel like I'm getting into the groove of things, right? It's 2019. Let's do it, right? So I want to back up a little bit to the beginning of 2019. I've always wanted to move to California. So God provided a way for me to move to California. So February 2019, I was there. Within a week, I ended up finding a place, moving in, and even bought a new car all within that week, right? And I said, oh, this is God. Thank you, Jesus, right? Like, praise God. Thank you. During my time in LA, I experienced different things. I mean, I'm very sensitive spiritually. I'm very, very sensitive. And so if I sense that something's off, or someone is like, the vibe, if you will, is not right, I'm gonna sense that. So during my time in LA, I ended up linking up with a friend that my mom connected me with. And, everything was cool, everything was real chill. So I ended up deciding to do a fast just for 3 days, just to cleanse my body, just to clear my head, just all of that. Like, God, I'm focused on you, at this point, like, focusing on you. I thank you for what you've done. Thank you, right? Nipsey dies. The day he dies, my homegirl at the time, we talk about the situation. We're talking about, him. So that morning, everything was fine when she came back. That evening, when we found out about, everything, she comes back to my house, and we're talking about it. And prior to her coming back over, I did ask her to bring me some edibles, right? Because it's legal. I want some edibles. I like candy. Anyways, so she brought me some candy edibles. And I never opened them actually, just because of how freaked out I was, right? So basically what happened was, after, we mingle and whatnot, we talk about Nipsey. She gives me a hug, she leaves my house, and now I'm left with like a presence in my house that I'm like, oh, something ain't right, right? So, I immediately call my friend, like, girl, I can't go to sleep. I was in the shower. It felt like something was on me and behind me, and I need you to pray for me. And so my friend said, immediately, we're gonna, we plead the blood of Jesus. You get yourself some oil, some olive oil, and pray over it, and you anoint your house, and you anoint yourself. Now, instantly after she got done praying, that spirit out of there, gone. And so now I'm like, oh my goodness, that was a spirit. I cannot believe that happened to me, right? So I have an encounter, like a spiritual encounter with a presence, with a different spirit that wasn't of God in my house. I'm freaked out. I said, this girl done dropped something off at my crib. What is happening? I said, I'm not talking to her anymore. No, I'm not talking to her anymore. I don't even know. I'm not talking to her. Anyways, a couple days go by. I ain't talking to her. God wakes me up out of my sleep, and I hear sirens. Like I'm hearing something outside my window, and I'm like, who is outside my window? Now, where I live, my apartment was right off the highway, so you could actually see, you could see the highway, the ramp, and whatnot. And also, like, there was like my parking, the parking for us and what have you. But I have soundproof windows, so you really can't hear anything. But I'm like, it sounded like there were sirens outside, and I'm just like, let me get up, because what is going on? So I get up, and I'm like, ain't nobody outside. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see what this is. God woke me up out of my sleep, right? And I thought of her, and I was like, God, I'm not talking to her. Like, no, I'm not talking to her. But I see that she texts me, and I'm like, okay, I'm talking to her. I better tell her what happened. So I ended up just texting her and letting her know, because it's early in the morning, mind you, like 3 or something like that, 3, 4 in the morning. Maybe let me say around 1 or 2. It was early, but anywho. So I ended up texting her, and I let her know, like, hey girl, I'm not exactly sure what may have happened, but you dropped something off at my crib, okay? And we spoke the next day, and she ended up telling me, like, hey, you're not the first person that has said this. And I said, oh, okay. So it really has me wondering, like, well, what you get into, what are you dibbling and dabbling into? What have you allowed to come into your space, right? I said, you know what, we're gonna pray. We're gonna pray. I call my homegirl up, because when 2 or more are gathered, there he is in the midst. Me and my homegirl, we prayed for her, and that was that, right? So my time in California, I'm experiencing spirits now. Like, I'm experiencing presence that are familiar and bold enough to be almost up on me, type of thing, right? Anyways, later that year, I ended up coming back to Georgia. So still 2019, but later in that year, I come back to Georgia, and I ended up taking my exam for my license in August, right? So come back to Georgia in 2019. The beginning of 2020 is when I ended up going back to California, because now I'm like, I'm going to practice. Let me just work. Let me walk. I'm gonna go ahead and just. I have my license, so let's walk in it. I'm setting things up, getting with my broker, all that good stuff. But the panorama happens, right? So I go out to California. I want to say maybe like the end of February, around the beginning of February, something like that, middle. And I'm there for a couple weeks, and I'm seeing on the news. I'll never forget. I'm sitting in the nail salon, and I'm like getting my nails done. And I'm like, are they for real about this? Are they for real? And he's kind of like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, I'm sitting getting my nails done, and I'm like, wow, God, like, I don't know what to think, because I came out here to build something so that, you know, I have the life that I want to live, right? That's where I'm at. Anywho, the pandemic happens, LA shuts down. So I'm kind of between, God, what do I do at this point? I'm asking God, like, what do I do? I stayed there for about a month or so, um, until I decided to, okay, let me just go ahead and go back home, because I don't know how long LA is about to be closed. And at that time, I wasn't about to sit here and just, you know, like, my family is back home. So I come back home. Um, Ended up, what, I wasn't even here long. Like, I wasn't in my mom's house for a week. Ended up finding a new place and just moving in at my new spot. I moved into my new spot. I'm thrilled. I'm like, yes, let's get to it. But at the same time, I'm like, but God, like, like, God, this isn't my plan. This is not my plan. My plan was always to move to LA. It was always that, to always build, always have a foundation in California. That's what it was. So, I said, you know what? I'm not gonna worry about it, because as of right now, I don't know when they about to open back up, but I'm gonna be here. That's what I'm gonna do. So 2020 comes, the summer happens to come around. I turned 32, and I am like having a good time. I'm enjoying life. My walk so far on this, where I'm at 32, I'm still hearing from God, right? Um, Kind of start to backslide just a little bit, because I'm drinking, drinking a little bit more. Um, start back fornicating and whatnot, and yeah, so that's that. So summer comes, we having a good time. In comes my second baby daddy. I gotta say it like that. But I meet a guy, and, well, let's just say, yeah. So I get pregnant. I found out I'm pregnant November 2020. And I also, like, right before finding out that I was pregnant, the same month, I ended up, my license became active here in the state of Georgia for me to practice real estate. So I'm like, yes, okay, let's get it going. I can't do it in LA right now, but I'm gonna do it here. So I was excited. Like, yes, we gonna go ahead and get it going. Yeah, yeah. I look like an old woman. Oh my goodness. Anyways, so I'm excited about my license being active here, and I'm thrilled, right? But the guy that I was seeing, you know, things were kind of like a little just not right from the beginning. Let's just say that it just wasn't right. But I ignored it, because I'm like, I see the best in you, buddy. I can see your potential. And let me just pause here. One of my old managers told me, do not marry potential. And it always stuck with me. I never, like, at that time, I didn't really understand it. She told me her story and whatnot, but I never really understood what she meant by, like, potential and marrying that. Hindsight is 2020. I understood now. I understand now. And I got it. Got it, right? Basically, she's just saying, like, listen, they might have that potential, but don't marry that potential. Like, the same thing as when a person shows you who they are, believe them. That's pretty much that. So anyways, find out that I'm pregnant November 2020. And, um, super unexpected. Like, just, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. What? All right. Um, just wasn't the best situation at all. And like, considering how the situation was, one would have thought, like, girl, just end it. Just end it. What you doing? Hello, end it. Stop it. And yeah, that would make sense, but I personally couldn't have gone. I just couldn't have gone through with it. And so yeah, I didn't go through with it, but things went left real quick between him and I. And I found myself like, whew, having anger in my heart towards this guy. Like, my goodness, I'm like, oh my gosh, Lord, I've never felt this angry towards anybody. Like, but he provoked me. It was like a level of like, oh my gosh, this cannot be like at all. There was a lot of things that happened um, that God gave me signs prior to getting pregnant, right? And I ignored the signs. Um, so, anyways, got pregnant. Things didn't work out between us. We went our separate ways. Boom. Um, that's that on that, right? So the beginning of my pregnancy, I'm upset. Like, and I'm more so upset with myself because I can't believe I allowed this to happen to me. Like, again, like, how could you not have followed the sign? Like, how could you not listen to the Holy Spirit a second time concerning a man? Like, what are you thinking? That's me. I'm upset because I'm like, God, I should have listened to you. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, forgive me. So I'm really just having to deal with my decision at this point, right? So I'm having to deal with my decision. It has crossed my mind on numerous occasions to just abort, right? But I did it. So the first half of like the first trimester was, I was super down. I was super sad. Like, God, I can't believe I did this. I just wasn't in the best headspace at all. But second trimester, things started to lift up a little bit. Like, I started to feel a little bit better. Like, okay, it's all good. It's, you know, it is what it is. He'll work it out for my good, as always. It's you know, cool, whatever. By the time I had him, things felt a little bit better. You know, I felt a little bit better. Um, so my mom is living with me at this point, and I'm getting ready to like drop off the lease. Basically, I found another spot, and the place that I was at was just too small. So I needed to move at this point. Like, it was just too small, and I knew it was a short lease, and I knew that I wasn't about to like, I'm not renewing, like, not at all. You know, I got it at a good price at the time, and it was perfect for what I needed in that moment, and that's what it was, right? So, anyways, coming towards the end of that lease for myself to get off, and I end up moving. So since my move to where I'm at now, um, a lot has changed for me. Like, when I look back at how I was in 2020 and then in 2021, and even at the top of the year, I see the transformation that God has done within myself, right? So my walk through, this is like the quick version. So my walk with God has been like a little bit back and forthness. Like, you know, I'm serving God, then I'm in the world of the world, you know, doing this, but then I'm back out here in these streets. I'm doing that. And then, you know, like, it's back and forth. But after having my second son and God really dealing with me about a lot of stuff, I'm realizing that, like, wait a minute, because this is another mountain that you kind of had to go back around. And you don't need a third baby to recognize how you need to be walking in your calling. You don't need that. And so now that I am here where I'm at, I'm very thankful and grateful to God for just allowing me to go through those things. I'm literally a living testimony of God will work it out for your good. Neither one of my situations with my kid's father, well, sperm donors really, were favorable at all. Glory be to God, because it's a lesson learned, and I thank God that He allowed me to go through what I went through, and I'm not looking back anymore. Like, honestly, I'm I can't see myself going back to that lifestyle, especially when I seen my wrongs. Like, you know, when you know better, you do better, basically. Like, why would you want to go back doing the very thing that God delivered you from. Why? Why would you want to go back and live in sin? Sin separates us from God, from Christ. He still loves you, but sin separates us. Um, I don't want to live in sin. I have no desire from that. And I also just want to throw this in there. When you start walking with God and truly walking with God, like truly surrendering your life over to Him, you start to see your heart's desires that you wanted at one point starts to turn to the desires that He wants for you. So, the Bible says God will give you your heart's desires. Yes, that's very true. That's very, very true. He really will. But have you ever thought, like, maybe those heart's desires is aligned with His for your life? That's what I'm seeing in my own life. So I shared all of that, and I really do hope that it helps someone on their walk, on your journey. I was ignorant spiritually, and I did a lot of things not knowing. But now that I know better, I do better. Okay. Um, just because we serve a gracious God, a mighty God, a forgiving God, a faithful God, a loving God, does not mean we can just do anything. Okay. When He shows you the things that you've done, you take heed to that. Obviously, He wants to correct it, right? He wants to make you better, make you whole. So anyways, I have to go. Until next time, you guys, remember, your greatest weapon is your praise. I love you guys.